Hey everybody, this is Mitch Allen with EO Fort Worth. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Hey, we're here with Jeremy Brandt, and I wanted just to spend some time with him today to really get to know him and share his story with all of you. So welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks, Mitchell.
Hey, listen, we've been friends for a really long time and been EO. I think we joined roughly about the same time. So how long have you been in EO?
I think I've been in EO about, I forget now, but 16 years or 15 years, something like that. Quite a while.
Yeah, well, that's a really long time. And now you were actually in EO Dallas to begin with and then helped start EO Fort Worth, is that right?
That's right. When I first joined EO Dallas, there was no chapter in Fort Worth, and I was an entrepreneur in my 20s looking for a peer group and solutions to help me grow my business. And somebody in YPO introduced me to the organization. I went to an event and just loved it and really identified with the people that I was connecting with there and really enjoyed it, and joined as soon as I qualified, and then got really involved and started going to universities and on the board and all of that.
Yeah, nice. And then I know you helped start the EO Fort Worth chapter, which is 9 years ago, about to be 10 years. So what was your thought about starting an EO Fort Worth chapter? Because I know it had been talked about a long time with EO within EO Dallas.
Yeah, we'd been talking about it for many years, and I was coming off being the president of the Dallas chapter, and so I think part of it was I had a lot of dry powder and relationships within the chapter to get the resources to go kind of plant the flag and start EO Fort Worth. I also thought that there's this real sense of chapters can get too big, and when they're too big, we lose a lot of that intimacy within the individual chapters, and different chapters have tried different things to kind of split that up into smaller groups so you maintain those real peer relationships. And we just had people, I saw as the president, we had people coming over from Fort Worth that would stay in the chapter for a couple of years and then drop out because of the drive and the forum meetings were too far and all those types of things. And I've lived in Fort Worth for 20 years, and to me, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I love to create things. So it all just kind of made sense to go to Fort Worth, start a chapter, do what I love to do, which is create things. And we had a great group of people, yourself included, that came over and really just helped get us going. And I think it still may be one of the fastest growing EO chapters in the history of the organization.
Yeah, it was really, a lot of credit to you and the others, but it was a great time to do it. And you're right, I think about the growth has really been remarkable. And we really have, I think, a great tight-knit chapter here in Fort Worth. So, hey, a little bit, let's go, people who don't know you as well as I do, let's talk about your business. When you're introducing yourself to someone, what's your elevator pitch to somebody that?
Yeah. Well, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I've got a number of businesses. My primary business, the elevator pitch, is that we help real estate investors find houses to buy. Ultimately, that's what we do. We're what's known as a lead generation business. So we do marketing so that home sellers contact us, and we connect those home sellers with our real estate investor clients that are all over the United States and Canada and some other parts of the world. So that's kind of the elevator pitch for our lead gen business. And then about 7 years ago, I started a company called WeBuyHouses.com. And that business is maybe a little more similar to a franchise, where we have locally owned and operated offices all over the country that are operating under our brand, but are individual operations that we just help with marketing and systems and business process.
Mm-hmm. And now, so let's go back to your lead gen business.
You know a little bit about that.
I know a little bit about lead gen. Yeah, right. So I really do want to dive into that some more. But now the brand associated with that is Fast Home Offers.
That's right.
Is that
Fast
right?
Home Offer, yeah.
Okay, Fast Home Offer. Now, how did you get into this lead gen business? Was it naturally you just want to be an internet marketer, or was there something that started it before that?
So yeah, it's an interesting story. I think maybe a lot of entrepreneurs have a similar kind of arc. I was always entrepreneurial as a kid, so I always had side hustles and things that I was working on, and things that I was doing while I had a full-time job. And my background was really in technology. So I was doing high-tech marketing for networking for .coms, the routers and switches and infrastructure that kind of hold the internet together. And when all that blew up and the .com crash happened, I met a friend of mine, and he was flipping houses and doing really well, and I thought, this looks fun. And so just started flipping houses here in Dallas. And what came out of that was I applied a lot of my tech background to that industry. How do I find houses? And started doing SEO and a lot of just the technology things that, especially this was 2002, were really, really early for the real estate market. And I put up a few websites and started getting home sellers all over the country contacting me. And being a good entrepreneur, I scratched my head and said, what am I going to do with these? I'm not going to fly to Miami to buy a house. And so I just started cold calling real estate investors that I found online, and saying, I got these people that want to sell their house. Would you pay me a fee just to give you the lead? And of course, the real estate market was hot at that time, and people couldn't write checks fast enough. And so within a couple of years, I stopped kind of investing in real estate as a primary business and really just focused on the online marketing side of things to generate leads for people, and really love it. My background and my passion is really on the technology side of things. I love real estate, but the technology is where I really kind of enjoy working and optimizing processes and things like that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I think so many of us have this sort of follow your nose mentality where like you do something and it's like, oh, well, I could do this, this something else. And one thing leads to another, one leads to a different business. So how did you transition? What was the transition from lead gen, this lead gen company to then now the franchising company? What was the shift and where was that trail to follow?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't so much a transition as it was an add-on. I had been working with some people that had owned this company for a while, and I'd really seen the opportunity in the name, and especially for SEO. And I valued it higher than most other people would because I knew from an SEO standpoint, having a lead business, it was immediately worth more to me than almost anybody else because of the infrastructure that I had. And so I was able to buy it and then really think about what's the highest and best use for this brand that everybody is familiar with, everybody knows. They've got this kind of instant awareness of WeBuyHouses.com. And so the idea really was, let's license the brand out to investors so that they can use it and have the benefit in their local cities. And it was kind of a natural progression as we talked to people and asked them what they want and what their struggles were. A lot of them kind of wanted their own brand to operate under. Real estate investing has a lot of, I'd say, some shady characters in it. And so the more that the ethical people can separate themselves from the rest of the marketplace, the better they do, the more trust they have with consumers, and ultimately the more business that they do. So that's been a great business. Both businesses are running strong right now. We've not slowed one for the other, and it's really fun. Not this year because of COVID, but we ran annual conferences for all of our licensees. So people would fly in from all over the country to our WeBuyHouses.com conference, and people just loved it. I really modeled a lot of it after the forum experience of people just showing up and sharing their experiences. And one of the things that people really loved about that was that because every office was in a different market, just like in EO, we're all in different businesses in a forum. Because every office was in a different market, they felt like they could just share every secret technique that they had in their business because they weren't ever going to tell it to a competitor because everybody else was in different cities. So that was another really rewarding thing that, one, I learned from EO, and two, kind of came out of that business.
Yeah, well, great. There are like so many things I want to unpack in that statement. First, I want to go back to the part about the marketing. All right, so you're an internet marketer, right, for doing the lead gen and then also the SEO associated with it. And you started, close to 20 years ago in doing this. Things have changed dramatically. Right, I have a little bit of knowledge in lead gen, and right, I was doing SEO, and it was like super easy in 2005. I didn't realize it, but then things have changed. So how has internet marketing changed over the last 15 years, and how has that affected your business?
Yeah, I mean, that is dramatically changed for sure. And as a marketer, our number one, cost of goods, if you will, is Google and Microsoft paid search. So that is our number one line item in our business as far as an expense goes. And I remember, back in 2002, I was doing all the SEO myself. I was managing all of the paid accounts myself. The cost per click was 3 cents per click, and maybe you paid 5 cents and really were grudging about it. And there was almost no competition. I mean, it was amazing in that it was just a wide open field and incredibly easy and simple to generate leads. And because of that cheapness or inexpensiveness of the marketing, we actually had a business model that didn't work long term at the time. So when I first started the lead gen business, the model that I had settled on was just a flat fee per month to own Dallas, let's say. So give me $1,000 a month, you get all the leads in Dallas, we'll do the SEO and we'll juice it with some pay-per-click, and you get all the leads and everybody's happy. Well, of course, you know what happened, right? The cost started going up and up and up, and my customers are paying the same price, and pretty soon I figured out I'm losing money doing marketing for these guys. And so we kind of I had to blow up that model entirely and change to what most people use now, and is what we use, is a pay per lead model. So you can align the costs to your customer with the cost that you have to generate leads.
All right, for those that don't know exactly what lead gen is, what does it mean that you are a lead generator?
Well, I thought I was, brilliant when I first started the company. I didn't know that there was such a thing as lead generators as an industry, but it turns out there's whole conferences devoted to it. And usually the story I tell when people ask what lead generation is if you think about a company like LendingTree, which people have seen their commercials. LendingTree, for the longest time, never actually did loans. All they did was run TV commercials and take loan applications from people, and then give those loan applications to Quicken Loans and Wells Fargo and all these different companies, and then get paid based on mortgages or successful loans. And so that's really what a lead generation company does. They generate a lead of generally a consumer, but it could be a business, that's not necessarily for their own purposes. It's for the purposes of giving that lead to somebody else and collecting a fee. You see a lot of this in home services as well, where you've got big companies that generate leads for painters and gutter repair and all the different kind of home services things, where you can go to one spot and all the different trades are there. Each one of those trades is paying a fee every time you call them to bring in new business. So we do that in the real estate industry. We do advertising so that home sellers contact us to sell their house, and then we connect them with our local real estate investor. We collect a fee for basically doing marketing for them.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting is this two-sided business model, right? So your consumers are not actually having to pay anything, right? They're getting this free service, and that's some ways what draws them into what they're doing. They're getting the value from it, and then the other side is the one who's actually paying you. Is that right?
That's right. And when you think about just from a small business standpoint, it's difficult for most small businesses to do the branding and marketing that it really requires to compete with big national companies. And so that's really why a lot of them use companies like us, or mortgage companies use companies like LendingTree, because at a national scale, we can spend a lot of money on TV commercials and billboard designs and websites and all these things, and have full-time in-house expertise on running pay-per-click advertising that is just really inefficient to do if you're a single real estate investor in a market that wants to buy a couple of houses a year. Trying to put together all of that expertise as a percentage of how much money you're making is really, really high. And so outsourcing that to a large national company makes all the sense in the world, and is actually a lot more efficient for small to medium-sized operators.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So there are different models within lead generation. Do you, we unfortunately at my company used to sell leads just one time. Mm-hmm. Many of the others sell them multiple times. How do you handle that? Do you sell leads multiple times at one time? What's that business model in terms of your lead generation?
So for us, we've tried all of it. We've tried selling multiple times. We've tried selling once and then a delayed sale later, and a lot of these different things. And what we've settled on, which is our pure business model now, is we sell every single lead real time the second it comes in, and we only sell it to a single person. And we charge a premium for that, because obviously we can't sell the lead 5 times. We have to roll all that cost up into a single lead. But I really feel it's better for the consumer, and it's better for our client, right? Our client isn't fighting a bunch of other people for that same lead, and they can really work on building a relationship rather than feeling like they've got to drive a really hard sale because they're competing with 4 other people. And the consumer has a better experience. I don't know if you've ever used things like Angie's List or some of these different online services where I need a guy to come wash my windows or something, and then your phone rings 100 times because they've taken your lead and they've sold it. And it's not a great consumer experience. And so consumers don't want to get called by 10 people. They want to get called by one person who's reputable and good and is going to solve their problem. And so that's really where we've focused all of our attention, is sell a lead a single time. It's a premium lead because it's very expensive to generate, but the experience for our client is much better, and for the consumer as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice. You mentioned you've used the word branding a few times, and I struggle with this word as a small business owner. You look at, when I consider branding, I always have this image of my mind of Dunkin' Donuts, and then 5 a.m. donuts. That this mom and pop, and it just says donuts out on the side of their store. You walk in the store, and there's nothing in that store besides some tables and a rack. But you go to Dunkin' Donuts, and every Dunkin' Donuts has the same look and feel, and has a brand look, has this brand around it. So how do you translate, and how do you think about brand or branding
in
your world, in your businesses?
Yeah. We talk a lot about it internally, and I think for us, what a brand really means is purely what do other people think of your business. If everybody's completely unaware of your business, then your brand is not a brand, right? You're the 5 a.m. donuts. They're not aware of anything about you. They just want a donut, and they're going to walk in and hope you don't poison them. So the first thing is, to have a brand, people have to be actually aware of it. Not a ton of people, right? It might just be your little niche of people in the segment that you service, but there has to be that awareness. And then you want to think about what feelings do they have around when they hear your company name, when they hear your brand, what kind of feelings do they have around it? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it those guys are honest? Is it they're expensive? Is it they're cheap? There's all these kind of things that go into it. So there's definitely the logo and the colors, and you want all of that to be cohesive and very professional. And that's what we do for our clients all over the country, is kind of give them that brand in a box that's all been professionally designed, and the website looks like the logo, looks like the business card. They all line up together. We have a lot of clients that wrap their cars, and so all the colors and things match. But we spend a lot of time making sure that the brand has this kind of integrity feeling, that when people hear it, they think those are the honest guys that'll buy your house. And so we do a lot of TV interviews and work with the press on stories and those types of things to really build up that brand awareness. We have a code of ethics for all of our clients so that they're all adhering to certain things, because if one of them hurts the brand, it hurts it for everybody. And so we really focus a lot on that and spend a lot of time thinking about how do we protect that image that we've built in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. So you brought up something there that that I think you do exceptionally well, and that is PR. Many people in ER, or in EO or small businesses, I'd love to be on TV, I'd love to get in the newspaper, I'd love to do these things, and it's just a want, right? It's just a thought that they have. So how have you gone about actually done it? Because you've been on CNN, you've been on all over the TV as well as the newspaper. How do you go about? So first of all, let me say, give some examples of how of places you've been on, and then how did you get on?
It's I get this question a lot, and it's PR is easier and harder than you think to do, which I'll qualify that a little bit. But I've been fortunate. I was on Larry King. I've been on CNN a few times, Fox News a few times, Fox Business, CNBC, a lot of the local TV stations, and then in Wall Street Journal and USA Today probably a dozen times, and newspapers all over the country. And the thing with PR is, at least for me, and the strategy that we've followed is, you've got to put yourself in the seat of the reporter. And the seat of a reporter, they're getting press releases hammered at them all the time. They probably get a dozen, 2 dozen a day. They never want to give out their email address because they're just buried with people pitching stuff. And if you think about you as a business owner, I get pitched stuff all the time, and my attention span for somebody cold pitching me is 0. You could have the best product in the world, I'm just not paying attention because it is not on my radar, not have time to think about it. And I think that's how reporters really treat press releases a lot. And so what I really thought about is, how can I solve what their problem is? Well, the problem is they need stories. They don't want to go advertise your business, but they need stories. And so if you can come up with an idea or a thing that gives them a great story, it can be a great way to get in with them and give them what exactly they need. Tee up a story for them that's human interest, that involves your business, but isn't about your business.
So that's very interesting about PR. Do you have an active strategy about it, reaching out to people, or is it mainly because of your SEO and because of you've been in other places that people are reaching out to you? Because I find that in some ways, from say Hire Santa, right now people are just reaching out to me because they're very interested in COVID and how Santa's going to be, and because of SEO. And on Shark Tank, people know about us. So how is it that, where are you sort of that virtual circle are you in getting PR requests?
Yeah, so that definitely ebbs and flows. The height of kind of when I got the most PR attention was on all the news shows, was at the height of the housing crisis. And so much like COVID plus virtual Santas makes for a really interesting story, we had built this big national brand and people were really aware of it, and I was on one TV show, and I got put on the list of, if you need to talk to a guy about real estate and the crash, here's a guy that'll come on and talk about it. So there's definitely some of that. Once you get out there, and they need somebody, they're running down a list of who's been in the media before, who can we call, and so that's really helpful. We're not in that cycle right now, so I don't get a lot of kind of cold outreach from the media looking to do a story, but we definitely do outbound requests and try to work with the media in an outbound way and do what what they call newsjacking, where find some really interesting story and how does your company relate to that story? How can you insert yourself in the middle of it? So we've done a lot of that. We've done stories on, how at the height of COVID, we have a remote property review system. We'll do FaceTime with the home seller and have them walk around the house, and we'll make notes on repairs and ask them questions and do something that's, physically distanced. When you start to get into politics, you probably don't want to insert your business too much into it, but on the periphery of just kind of the craziness that is a lot of politics, putting your business kind of on the periphery of that and having commentary and talking about what's happening. And we had a big story in the Wall Street Journal about politics in the workplace, and I didn't take any kind of political stance, but the story was about how you have people of different political leanings in your office, some of them very opinionated, and how do you manage that in an office environment of letting people speak and feel free in the office, but also not having people feel like it's a political office that we're just going to get here and debate every day. So we do a lot of that. And then, EO has a great service called Press Pass that they work with reporters when reporters are working for stories. I think in the last week, I've probably seen 3 or 4 come across of major national publication reporters looking for stories on mostly related to small business and the PPP and stimulus and those kinds of things, asking questions. So we've gotten a lot of news articles out of the EO connection. And then a lot of times I'll just, read the news and call the reporter off an article with an opinion. And that has worked surprisingly well. I remember I was on, a while ago, because he's off the air, but I was on Larry King a while ago. And I remember the process that it took to get on Larry King. I was surprisingly easy. Which is why I think it's the hardest and easiest thing to do. I was driving in my car. I was listening to CNN, and an advertisement came on for Larry King, and he had Donald Trump coming on and 3 other real estate people, and it was that night. It was the advertisement for the show that night, and I said, "Well, they're doing a real estate show. I'm a real estate guy," and I was 30 at the time, so I didn't know what I didn't know. So I literally called CNN, New York City, and I said, I need the producer for Larry King. And hold on. Some guy gets on the phone. Yes, it's David. Hey, David. I went into my pitch. My name's Jeremy Brandt. I own this national real estate company. I talk about real estate all the time. I just saw you got, Trump and a couple other people on talking about real estate tonight. I'm sure it's too late for that, but if you guys are doing anything in the future about real estate, I'd love to, come share my opinion. And the guy's like, all right, hold on. Gets my phone number, gets my information, and I totally forgot about it. I thought I'm never going to hear from this guy again, but it was fun. And 5 days later, I get a call on a Friday, and and he's like, "Hey, this is David." I'm like, "David, you're from Larry King Live." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He says, "Hey, we're doing another real estate show on Wednesday of next week. Can you be available?" I'm like, "Well, is that easy?" Well, sure, I could be available. And that is literally how fast it went. And I didn't fly out I didn't fly out to the studio, but I did a remote here in Dallas, and went out there at 8:00 at night or whenever the show airs, and it was a live feed, and shared my opinion. And it was a ton of fun, and it was a huge audience relatively for things I've done, but was also just a total cold call that turned into something. And there's actually been a number of those things. So cold calling reporters and just sharing your opinion gets you on the radar. And once you're on the radar and they need the Santa expert or the real estate expert, you're at the top of your list.
Nice. That's awesome. That's a great story as well. So, hey, so a couple more things about your business, and then I want to talk about EO some more. So I have an idea for you, but about what yours is, but what if you were asked the question, what's your business superpower? How would you respond to that?
Well, I'm interested for you to tell me what you think my business superpower is. I think for me, it's optimization. It's seeing inefficiencies, both when I've bought businesses, this has really come into play, and then also in growing the businesses that I have. I'm really good at, I'm not an inventor. I'm not somebody that comes up with a novel idea that nobody's ever thought of and then I go build it. I'm a really good optimizer, and then I can see something that is kind of working and really figure out how to get it to 99.9% efficiency. And so it's been fun with acquisitions because you can really look at how something is mismanaged and pull it in and turn it into a significant revenue gain real quick. And in our businesses, it's a very tech-centric business, and so kind of that optimization plays a lot into technology because you can really just turn the dials and turn the dials and turn the dials and start to see that margin increase or that revenue increase. So that's I think that would be my superpower if I had one. I don't know if it's a superpower. It might be.
Definitely superpower. All right, so let's go to the opposite side of that is like, what do you think, not necessarily a weakness, but like something that might be holding you back or within your business operation? What would you say to that?
I think for me, the area that I probably struggle with a little bit is on just kind of the people side of things, management. Because I'm very process oriented and optimization focused. That's kind of where my head lives, and I think I don't spend enough time thinking about kind of where people are at in their life, what they're struggling with, and kind of those really emotional intelligence things that I think are really important for leaders to have. But sometimes, me especially, just get blowing and going and can kind of miss some of those things.
Mm-hmm. I think that's easy. Right. I definitely empathize with that thought a lot. And I know you and I have had lots of conversations about it. But let's talk about employees. One of the things that I hear within EO people is, or EO business owners or that size or small businesses, I wish I didn't have any employees, or what,
Right.
some notion or something around that. And
Business would be great without the employees and the customers.
Right, exactly. And I always say to that is I love my employees.
Right.
Now, it's some of that is trying to tell myself that, but it really is. I think when you have great employees, they really are like make your life easier. But it's very hard, and EO people struggle with that. So how do you how have you had success in dealing with employees and finding the right employees, but then making them part of your business and in essence part of your life?
Mm-hmm. So I think when it comes to I've been really fortunate in that I have most of the people that work here have been here for many years. One of the people I work with, we've been working together in my businesses and then together previously in another company for 20 years, something like that. And so I think it's, when you find the right people, you really do everything you can to invest in them and make sure that they feel part of the organization and part of what you're doing. Not, you don't want people that check a time card and are 9 to 5 and just kind of there and leave. The best at all levels. I think the very best people in an organization are the people that feel tied to it. They care about it. It's something that's important to them, not a job for a paycheck. And I think again, I think I've been really fortunate that the people that work here feel that. They are invested in the success of the business. They're invested in growing it. And I think a lot of that really, in a lot of businesses we saw through COVID, how people responded to the work from home, the furloughs, the layoffs, different things. You see a lot of big companies that really struggled, where employees hated the company and thought they were terrible, and the big corporate company that doesn't have a face just seemed like a mean person that should keep paying people even as all of their revenue dried up. And then in the small business side, you see bar and restaurant owners that had to send people home, and the people would do work anyway without pay just because they wanted, they cared about the owner and they cared about the business, and they just cared about the community that had been created. So, I don't know, I don't have any pithy words of advice, but I think it's really in your business, how do you create a community? How do you create a thing that people want to be at for more than just the paycheck and, to pay their bills?
Mm-hmm. Along with that, I really struggle with accountability, sometimes with myself, but a lot of times with employees that, you've got an employee who maybe isn't that superstar, but it does a decent job. And I sometimes struggle with accountability. How do you deal with accountability in your organization?
Yeah, probably like you, I struggle with it. I mean, I think that's a thing that we're always working on at making better. And I think it also comes from, I started me in a garage, and when it's just you're just accountable to yourself. And if you're a driven person, you work really hard, and You're not worried about the hours. And then, you hire one or two people and you're with them all day long. So there's not really another accountability problem because you're right next to each other working, all the time. And so there's this really natural feedback loop of always kind of keeping each other going. Where's this at? Where's that at? Without it feeling like some official accountability thing. And I think then you start to grow and you get to the point where you really have to put processes in place around accountability. And, to me, that's really just, what are you going to do? And did you do what you said you're going to do? And it can be as simple as that. So we don't have a real solid official process here. But I think in its spirit, that's really what it's about. It's, what needs to get done and did you do it? And I think the other thing that I've worked a lot at over time that I think we're getting better at is very, very clear roles and responsibilities. I think one of the mistakes that I've made in the past is the worst thing you can do is give somebody responsibility without authority or the obligation without the authority. Because that's a disaster situation where somebody can't make the decisions, but they're obligated to the outcome. And so really trying to, if I give somebody the obligation or the responsibility to make sure they have the authority that they need to get it done and they're not stymied by things in the process. And so I think as a CEO, that's one of the things to really think about is how do you just spend your time removing the roadblocks of your employees that's slowing them down from getting done what they need and want to get done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that last statement. I always love asking the question whenever I'm checking in with employees is like, what can I help you, where are you stuck and
right.
How can I get you past that? I think that's always a great question. I think sometimes people or employees or people that come to work at a small business, and we're small businesses, who haven't worked in a small business, sometimes find that difficult in that you mentioned rules and responsibilities and roles, and you're moving to that thing. But talk to me about the difference then, because you've worked in a large company before, the difference between you're working at a specific job and you're supposed to do ABC, you come to work for a small company and your job is the company. So
right.
Have you had the experience that employees either love, hate, or have to adjust to working in a small business for an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think I've had all of those experiences. So it really depends on the personality type of the person coming to the organization. And I think if you've got a very entrepreneurial company, that's a really important thing to convey when you're interviewing people and when you're about to hire people, because some people are really drawn to it and some people are really repelled by it. I remember when I worked in a corporate environment, I was repelled by the structure of a corporate environment. Fortunately, I worked in some big corporate environments, and then I worked for some kind of large internet startup corporate environments. They had lots of money and they had lots of employees, but they were these internet companies that operated like entrepreneurial businesses, and I loved that. I mean, I thrived in the environment of, give me a hill to take and let me go figure out how to do it, and I'll kill it. But some people, they want rigorous step-by-step process and everything kind of laid out, and that's the thing that they need. And I would say in my company, those could be great employees. There's not great employees for us because a small business oftentimes is a chaotic environment, and oftentimes, you're doing 10 different jobs, and even though it's not in your job description, you just pitch in and help. We moved into a new office, and everybody was doing 100 different things that wasn't on their job description to get us moved into a new office and get it kind of renovated. And so that's one of the things I look for when I'm hiring and talking to new employees is, that just flexibility and enjoyment of a little bit of chaos in the process, and be able to handle that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what throughout your entrepreneurial journey, we were all given advice, and I know you're a big reader, but looking back on it, what would you say is the best advice that you've been given as an entrepreneur? And that, when you think about your journey, you're like, you try to remember it and think about it, this advice over the last few decades.
Wow. There's a lot of those. The one that immediately comes to mind that I've thought about more recently is that I think as entrepreneurs in life and as an entrepreneur, we're always chasing some goal. That there's always this thing out there of my revenue needs to be X, or I need to sell the company, or I need to close this client, or there's kind of all of these goals out there, which are awesome. But I think it's really easy to get caught up in chasing the goal and missing the journey. Mm-hmm. And that now having been a business owner for 20 years and been really involved in EO and other things. I think really understanding that be present and enjoy the journey. Like, that's the thing that I think we can really miss out on if we're always trying to chase the next thing, or my life will just be good when I sell the business, or my life will just be good when this or that. And just recognizing that life is a bunch of really high highs and a bunch of really low lows. And yes, we're always chasing a goal, but day to day, like, just enjoy the present, whether it's a difficult day or a really happy day. Showing up every day and being present, I think, is really important and makes life much more enjoyable in the long run.
Mm-hmm. So that's great advice. So you've been in EO for a really long time, and so I want to segue into that. For people who've been in EO a long time or people who are brand new, I mean, EO Fort Worth now is 10 years, almost 10 years old. What advice would you give to new EOers as well as maybe experienced EOers from your perspective?
Well, I think for new EOers, for people that have just joined recently, my advice is be really intentional about just doing everything. I think a lot of times, as business owners, we're so busy, and every moment is precious that we give up to another thing. But I think the way to really get the most value out of the organization is to, go to all the events, get involved in all the programs, and then find out what really clicks for you. You don't have to keep doing all of them, but I think getting involved in everything really gives you a broad depth of what the organization is all about, and you'll meet tons and tons of great people, and I think that's where a lot of the magic lies. So when I first joined EO, that's kind of what I decided I was going to do. I joined, I got involved in a forum, I got involved in the board, I went on a university trip, which is our big international trip to Morocco. And I just had this, in a 12-month span, this amazing series of experiences that really tied me to the organization and connected me with friends all over the world that I still have today, 15 or so years later. So I think just really diving in and everybody you're going to meet is going to share a little bit of the same brain DNA that you do. And so it's funny how we are in totally different walks of life and have different businesses, but somehow we just have this real instant connection with people in the organization because we're all kind of fighting a similar fight as an entrepreneur. So that's really my advice for if you just joined, just jump in and say yes to everything. And I know it's a bit of a time commitment, but I think it will really pay off in the long run, and it has for me. And now as a tenured member, I guess I would say, the things that I get out of the organization have really changed. And so for me, I love mentoring other entrepreneurs. I get a lot of satisfaction and value out of that. So that's been a thing in EO over the last few years that I've been able to do and has been really enjoyable. I focus a lot more, again, not this year, but on travel. So I do more of the international universities and some of the international events where I can travel to amazing places with great friends and other business owners and kind of, talk about life from the same perspective as other people there and travel with really enjoyable people. So that's been really valuable to me. And then Forum has been a big part of my EO journey. And you and I are in a forum together and really just, lifelong friends from those relationships. And I think when you get the right group together in a forum, it's a pretty amazing bond, from people that will drop everything at a moment's notice and do whatever they need for people in that group, and I would do the same. And so I think that's a really powerful thing. And as you kind of progress throughout your business career and have different sales and things, I think that's kind of, you look back, that's what lasts is some of those relationships and the other things. So, if you've been in EO for a long time, do the international stuff and keep your forum together and stay strong.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard for EOers. There's, I think, 94 what they call products in EO, which is sort of daunting. Right. I can think of about 5. But forum's always that mainstay about it. And I know you do a lot of things outside and really gone all the way up in terms of global leadership as well. So there's lots of different opportunities. Speak to maybe what's been surprising, because for me, I've had it was surprising about many things about EO. I joined it for one thing and got so many things out of it otherwise. What's been surprising over your EO tenure?
Well, I think like a lot of people, I joined it for the business this is going to make my business better. I'm going to learn about business stuff. And it absolutely, without question, has. I've earned my EO dues 10,000 times over in things I've learned and deals that I've done because of them. But I think, the biggest surprise really is just that it's been so much more of a personal connection and a life, things in your real life versus just a silo of business. I think it's really difficult to explain to people before they join that's what it's going to look like. And so it really just comes across as a business networking group, and, show up and you're going to learn amazing things from amazing speakers and get connected to a bunch of business owners that are going to help you with your business. And, that all sounds great. And then you get into it, and it really, I think for the people that it resonates with, it becomes a really big part of their life, right? They're some of their best friends become people from the organization. They spend a lot of time with people in the organization. It becomes a lot more about personal development and those friendships than the business side of things. And I think that is, especially for an entrepreneur, that's actually how it should be. Because, as an entrepreneur, I went through a leadership program a while ago, and they made a really big point about if you want to transform your business, you have to transform the person running the business. And more so than even a hired CEO of a business, that if you're the entrepreneur, the business is a reflection of you. And so to change the business, you really need to change yourself. If you've got struggles with employee management or struggles with organization or these things, your business is going to have all of those same problems. And so you really need to recognize in yourself those issues, be really clear about them, and then hire for it or develop those skills in yourself. And I think that EO really helps shine a light on a lot of those things and helps you realize that early on in my career I was oblivious to.
Yeah, I would echo many of those same things about EO, and it is hard to tell somebody who's either thinking about EO or even brand new to EO that, these are the things that you'll look back on EO and say, this is what I got out of EO. And this is what keeps you, gets you past that, if the 3-year or 5-year, that window where people tend to drop out of EO, and it's because they're not engaged in those ways and they're making the connections for it. So I think it's probably a pretty common thread that you join it for business, and then you stay there because of the relationships and all the personal development that you get out of it. So so I want to dovetail into I got a couple more things. I really appreciate your time today. One is, I know you're a big reader, both of books and online things and podcasts and all the things. So if you were going to recommend to people in EO, like a couple of books or a couple of podcasts or a couple of things that you're like, I really enjoy these things, I've read them before, what books of business, personal development, whatever it happens to be, would you strongly recommend to people?
Boy, there's so many great ones. So on the book side, I think one of the books that really got me started when I was an early entrepreneur is a book called The E-Myth, which I think most entrepreneurs have probably read, The Entrepreneur Myth. And it really talks about when you're starting a business, what we often do is start a job, not a business, and really understanding that and unpacking, how do I run this so that I'm not the person doing all the work and that the whole business doesn't stop if I'm not present. So that, for an older book, is a really great one. As far as podcasts, I've really been enjoying, we actually had him come talk to EO Fort Worth a while ago, and I've really been enjoying a podcast by Roland Frazier called, I think, The Business Lunch, where he's just doing this. He's interviewing other entrepreneurs about their business and how it works and why do they do this and why do they do that. And so I just love that kind of stuff. So I really have a long list of podcasts that are really oriented around that, about people interviewing either business owners or really interesting people, but kind of diving, not being surface level, diving really deep and saying, well, why about this and why about that, and kind of digging 2 or 3 levels down.
Yeah, that's a great podcast and a great book. So those are all great things. So the last question is, one of my favorite communication starters is, what's your passion? What are you passionate about?
Well, so I'm passionate about travel, and I would say more than just travel. I'm passionate about unique life experiences. I've said it a couple of times, but I will gladly trade things for experiences. Things are not as important to me as experiences are, and so I really try to go and visit off the beaten path places like Morocco and Istanbul and some of these places that you might not go, because I just really value an amazing life experience and an amazing memory and an amazing learning about a new culture. I think it's easy to really get siloed in our own little world and think everywhere else is just like us, and kind of getting out there and seeing things that have been there for thousands of years that are just different than where we are and what we do is, to me, super powerful. So I really try to take 3 or 4 international trips a year, and kind of that's where I spend my free time and trying to build new experiences and new memories.
I love that as passion. And I think you told me previously, how many countries have you traveled to?
I think I'm around close to 40 right now. I don't have the exact number, but yeah, it's, it starts to get a little bit ridiculous because you'll be in one country and you're on the border of 1 or 2 other countries. Like, I got to rent a car and drive over to that country just so I can have been there. But yeah, it's I've seen a lot of the world. It's been really great, and I bet more than 50% of those countries were probably EO related. Leadership conferences or events or trips with forums and that type of thing. So it's something that EO has really introduced me to in a powerful way.
And just because we were in the same forum, I've gotten to go to several countries, and we've gone to Cuba, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, to name a few countries. And I'm like, I would not have gone to those countries or had those experiences without EO. So I think that. I don't necessarily have travel as a passion, but because of it, I think because of EO, it's like really interesting to do. So, well, hey, Jeremy, I've really appreciated your time today, and I know everybody in EO Fort Worth will really enjoy getting to know you a little bit more from this. So thank you so much. And if there's a way that people can reach out to you if they have any questions or want to learn more about you, what's the best way to do it?
They can just send me an email, jeremy@jeremybrandt.com.
JeremyBrandt.com. I didn't even know you had that one.
There you go.
There you go. Really nice.
It's branding.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks a lot, Mitchell. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.